Welcome. So Skitarii released yesterday for Warhammer 40K Darktide, and it has been great fun. I spent all this time finishing all the penances except 100 games, which will autocomplete at some point, I guess. And this is my guide for how to most efficiently finish them all. Please like and subscribe, as this pleases the YouTube's machine spirit. Here in the background is one of the two builds I used to complete every challenge with some modifications, which I will show later. I will go through all of the penances to explain the easiest way to complete them, and finally go through the builds I created for this purpose. So let's get into it here. First of all, in the penance tracking menu, you can ignore almost everything up here. As you can see, I've done everything except some like 100 missions and the meta achievements for those. So you can ignore everything here. It's just tracking achievements, basically. Here are some weapon stuff, which you will max out for mastery at some point on the new weapons. When you are done with everything, check this one to make sure that you have at least used everything in some mission. Will probably autocomplete. Here, do one of each type. Mortis Expedition Adventure, surely you'll do this automatically. Here, when you are done, check what you haven't done and just complete the combination you are lacking. So it needs the, power overload with one of each, capacitors with one of each, and same thing with cleansing protocols with one of each. And all the rest is just meta achievements here. So here are the real penances. First of all, when you use the servo skull, you can spec, so it gets a Medicae servo skull that you can command. This is using your grenade ability key. So it's not the same as having it hack, and it's your blitz key, basically. You need to do one captured, one knockdown, one netted. Easy peasy, but might take you a few games. Complete data interrogation events on this. So this is your spotting key. You just tap or double tap your spotting key on a hack that needs to be completed, and your server skull will happily fly away and just do it for you. Just remember to do it on these 5 missions. Another one that's very easy, you can spec in addition to the Purgator skull. Again, this uses your grenade key, your blitz key. Just throw it on some doorway where a big horde comes when you are somewhat high level, and this will auto-complete, very easy. Overload 50 times in a single mission using power overload. This is very easy once you are in endgame and Auric, so save this one for last. This is probably the slowest of all the penances. This is why the build I mainly used was with the arc stuff, the arc rifle, the voltaic emitter, and arc grenades. They are also very good, so this is probably one of the best builds to use to complete this. Anyway, the only thing is, save all your grenades and throw them only at ranged elites, unless you really need to use it for something else. Save your voltaic emitter and only use it at 2+ charges when you run near ranged elites. So kinda slow, but it didn't take that many games when you did it this way. But this is one to focus on. Same here, apply electrocution 5,000 times. This is probably the second slowest, but we will have crit with melee applies electrocution. You can use the arc maul, which also does it, and spam with the rifle, of course, which will apply electrocution a lot. It doesn't take that many games. This one even faster, because arcing seems to count enemy and enemy and enemy, so you'd think these would be roughly the same, but arcing was way faster. again, this will autocomplete same as this. Here you have one where you need to kill 5 elite enemies using the Cord Claw within 10 seconds. So you either spec the addition to Cord Claw that lets it hit 3 times and aggressively push into some pack of Ragers, Maulers, whatever, and just spam all your charges until you kill 5. It'll probably take a few times, but it's not hard at all. Again, it's probably something for the late game because it might be too much competition to even kill anything on lower level, right? This is an autocomplete, which will happen with your Voltaic ability. This is an autocomplete for basically the others. This will autocomplete when you run the Advanced Combat Doctrine, the ranged ability, basically. It will automatically give you aimbot and hit the headshots if you just aim in head height, basically. Here is one that requires a bit of work. So on the range build, I put a refraction emitter. This puts a shield on you. So just aggressively push ahead of your group if you want to do it properly and become the ranged tank, more or less. And if you want to cheese it a bit, you can just find a room with lots of ranged and use all your charges and it will finish quite quickly. Couple games maybe. Keep in mind that for anything that needs grenades, you can run Mortis Trials and hope you luck out and get the quick grenade regen. If it happens to be the last stuff you need, it's not a terrible choice, but you don't need to do it at all. This is another autocomplete because we have red line capacitors in the main build. And this is one where you could do this on low level where it's easy, but it wasn't hard at Auric either. Flensing Protocol is one of those abilities that gives you stacks, and you spec it so you actually have 8 stacks. But when you get hit, you lose a stack. So just do some mission and be a bit careful, and it isn't hard to maintain basically 75% stacks 90% of the time, unless you get hit all the time. So might take a couple tries, but it's not as hard as some previous classes' health challenges were. So yeah, that should cover all the penances. And now let's go through the builds. So this is the main build. It's also linked below in the description of the video. This is the main build I use most of the time for the simple reason again that the disabling the weapons 500 times on elite ranged took the longest of anything by far. But it's also a good build, and this build is probably the one that has the best horde clear, which is kind of lacking in many random games, as I'm sure you've noticed, because everyone runs Skitarii, and if you don't run a build kinda like this, you're gonna have pretty bad horde clear. So, first of all, I might explain the arc mechanic. So some weapons, like the arc rifle and the arc maul, when they hit an electrocuted enemy, they will arc to the next enemy. And the next, depending on what you expect. So if you use the maul, which I did not, because it's very limited in how many charges it has with electric power on and so on. But when you hit an electrocuted enemy, it will arc to another enemy, which will also become electrocuted. And if you have enhanced voltaic arcs, it will arc a couple more times. But again, I did not love this weapon, and the electrocution penance was slower anyway, so I mostly simply ran with a knife with high crit and bleed and so on. But the arc rifle was great and arced extra. So the way you do it, since the first shots will electrocute the target, then if they are electrocuted, it will jump to the next one and electrocute them. So the best thing is to just blast into hordes and hit a target that is kind of tough. So like a mauler, a rager or something. Because then you will hit him and you will create arcs and you will electrocute more, etc, etc. And this is simply more efficient because of these blessings, that the arc jumps additional jumps compared to just spamming on random targets. So with that said, the best way to horde clear with this build is to actually use the voltaic emitter and then shoot everything, and then stuff will arc everywhere. However, always save your voltaic emitter and your arc grenades for ranged elites, since that penance is so slow. So if you have to, like you feel you really want to wipe a horde, or you are done with the penances and you actually just like the build, which is kinda good, then use one charge of voltaic emitter on a big horde and then blast it down with the arc rifle. It's pretty great horde clear. A bit weaker than, say, a flamer, but on the other hand, you kill crushers, you kill maulers, etc. So it has its strengths and weaknesses like anything else. And the main thing here is we use red line capacitors to just juice up the stacks and regen on everything else. And yeah, nothing really fantastic here. Automatic ammo generation, automatic ammo reload. So if you melee a bit, you don't need to reload your arc rifle, which has a painfully slow reload. Then a couple of nodes for critical hits generate capacitance. That's why I put crit on the weapon, so you have high uptime on this, so you can use many abilities, and 1% capacitance each second, along with, of course, the red line base regen. And when you need to do the other stuff, just pick one of the two builds I will show here that you like most, and just Frankenstein on overload on it. It doesn't really matter which build you do it on. So just delete these points, take the overload. Same thing with the flensing protocol, which you only need to do one run technically. Just delete some nodes on the favorite build of these and go down and take this instead. So that's the arc build, which I also showed in the intro. And the second build, also linked below, is a shooter build with advanced combat doctrine, and then the shield, the emitter. The only thing you really need on the emitter is this, because it makes it last longer. The others can pretty much ignore. You can spec this if you like, but felt it was better to just max juice all the capacitance and red line and so on. So when you need the power overload, pick the build you want. Both are kind of close in range. This one is closer to flensing protocol, so maybe better to do that on a ranged build anyway, right? And stay safe. And when you need to do the claw, which I suggest leveling with, that's what I did. I could also link my leveling build, so there are 3 builds. Then just delete this and pick the claw. And for the claw, you can either pick the 3 quick stab attacks or the horizontal sweep. You're not allowed to have both. So both are good. And if you pick the 3 quick stabs when you need to do the 5 elites within 10 seconds, you probably need to just retarget a bit, because you don't have to stand and stare in the same direction. You can re-aim while it is spamming and just spam a bunch of targets down. It will be easy. And whichever you use, if you hold down the button, it will still do the default heavy claw that will one-shot the crusher. So you always have access to the heavy attack, basically. And here are the additions to the servo skull. So this is the Medicae that then becomes an activation on your grenade ability key. And same with the Purgator skull. It's pretty bad, so I would only use it once on a big horde and then ditch it. Does not do great damage in my experience. And that should cover everything. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, either in the comments or on stream, and I'll try to answer everyone. So good luck with the penances, and see you later.